Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another edition of the Right Has Left podcast. I am your host, Roy Garton, and on this podcast, as we do each and every week, we discuss all things with the Trump White House, his cabinet, and the Republican Party. And yes, we also throw in the Democrats and the Democratic Party as well on as a need basis. If there's something to discuss with them, we, of course, try to be transparent on this show. So having said that, let's go ahead and get right into what's going on this podcast. And it's going to be our top story as we lead off with the recent NATO summit. And yeah, it was a little bizarre, wasn't it? I don't know how to explain it, but Trump had some serious issues with being able to convey his thought process, I guess we could say, on that summit that he attended. It left everybody there just totally astounded as to what was going on with his mental health and what he was trying to say. And on top of that, while he was at that summit, of course, the situation in with Iran continued to grow, and it just it brought down a lot of people, and it also brought down his purpose of being there. So, did he accomplish anything at the NATO summit? Not really. But let's go ahead and kind of get into it. Trump's growing criticism continues to strain the 77-year-old alliance, as NATO's chief says U.S. allies have made remarkable progress with defense spending, and Trump has called on them to step it up even more. One controversy that I was just talking about was his sale to Turkey of jets in a bilateral meeting with Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan. The U.S. president told reporters he would soon decide whether to sell F-35 fighter jets to Turkey, despite a congressional ban. And as I also mentioned to you, there have been a lot of things going on with Iran, and that was kind of distracting him. Maybe that contributed to some of his weird speech patterns, which we'll get in here in just a second. The Trump administration anticipates security to tighten up in the Strait to be among some of the key topics that was discussed by the NATO leaders, according to a senior U.S. official. And, of course, the other thing that was going on at the NATO summit, of course, was Ukraine. The president is also expected to meet with Zelensky, which he did in Nigeria. Trump vowed to end Russia's war within 24 hours of taking office, if you all recall about that. Well, that didn't happen, did it? And they're still trying to find a path to peace, not only between Russia and Ukraine, but also with Iran. And as I mentioned, Trump bungled his way through the NATO summit, and it started with him right at first getting off the jet, which brought him to that NATO summit, the Air Force One, and he didn't even know where he's going, as you can see with his video. And then he made a series of missteps with other topics. Trump at times looked totally lost in his thoughts. Watch this.
2 months ago, we had 100, I told this story yesterday, we had 111 missiles shot by the Islamic Republic of Japan. The Obama deal, that was one of the worst tragedies. JCPOC, what a terrible deal. Do you have a question for President Putin? Do you have a question for President Putin? Not Zelensky. Putin. Yeah, what would you like to ask him? Because I'm going to ask him that question.
And also, Trump thinks NATO should control Greenland. That also became a topic of discussion during a bilateral meeting ahead of the NATO summit in Nigeria. Trump went on to argue that Denmark has failed to adequately invest in Greenland and warned that the island's location makes it increasingly important as China and Russia expand their presence in that area. according to Trump. Greenland doesn't help Denmark. Denmark doesn't spend money to really help Greenland, but it's an important part of the United States. The president continued. Greenland should be controlled by the United States, not by Denmark, he concluded. Trump has previously refused to roll out even military action to acquire Greenland, but he largely shifted to advocating a long-term framework agreement during the World Economic Forum in Davos earlier this year. Even so, administration officials have continued to leave open the possibility of a more aggressive measures as they argue that Greenland is essential to United States national security. So let's just talk about that for just a minute. The only thing that is important to Donald Trump and Greenland is his minerals. He doesn't really give a rat's about the so-called defense and security. We already have a base in Greenland, and NATO already assists Greenland. What's important to Donald Trump, as it is with anything else that he does, because he always puts himself first, not the American people, is money and finances. How can anything that he touches benefit him personally and his immediate family? And of course, as with Venezuela, it's the oil. With Greenland, it's the rich minerals that are on that continent. That's what's important to Donald Trump. He wants to get his hands on that any way that he possibly can. That's how he's going to do it. His presidency has been for one thing and one only thing only: make himself and his family richer. And that's what it is all about Greenland. And I know that sounds crude, but that's basically what it is. And I don't know how else to be able to, phrase that. And the other thing that went on with, as you saw in that clip where Trump considered that, Zelensky was Putin and tried to backstep on his mistake. It's the same thing with Ukraine and Russia. Putin pulls Trump's strings. You know that, and I know that. Every time that Trump tries to do something with Russia to de-escalate the situation between Russia and Ukraine, Putin puts on a big smile, and he shows up with Trump, acts like it's all good. I'm going to work with you, dude, and we've got this. We'll try to come up with something. And Putin, just like Iran, backs down. Putin pulls Trump's strings. And we've already gave Russia permission to ship oil again. And what has that done? It has made Russia a lot more wealthier. And it has used that money to build up their military again. And that is why you're seeing Ukraine and especially Kiev getting bombed with rockets and missiles and drones. That is because Putin is getting more money, and he's getting more money because we deregulated the oil because of this crisis in Iran, and so therefore billions of dollars in cash is now going to Russia. And Putin loves it. So I know that's I don't know how else to put it, folks. That's what's going on. So getting back to this NATO summit, the visit comes after Trump's criticism of Spain and other NATO allies over the refusal to support U.S. operations against Iran. And so this whole situation with Iran is again getting out of hand. Let's just go ahead and get right into it. So the situation in Iran, as you're well aware of, has just totally fallen apart again. The Strait of Hormuz has become another hot spot. 2 ships have been struck around the Strait of Hormuz while traveling off the coast of Oman. The United States has continued, of course, as you're well aware of massive military strikes on Iran, and Iran has fired missiles at the ships that are presently in the straits. So, you know it, and I know it. This frickin' war is just going to continue on and on. Trump has no path to get out of this. And you've got Pete Hegseth going before Congress saying we need billions and billions of dollars more. And the Congress, even including the Republicans, are getting fed up with it. to the point to where they're almost ready to vomit over some of this stuff because Trump cannot find a way out, and he will lie out of his teeth to even tell the American people, peace is coming, we've got another peace deal. And how many times has he said that? I can count personally since I started this podcast, 9 times has Trump said we've got a peace deal, and it doesn't even frickin' last 2 weeks, even at that. The ceasefires and then the road to path to peace, and we're going to give Iran their money back. We're going to unfreeze their assets, and Iran is playing us just like a fiddle, just like Putin plays us like a fiddle. Donald Trump is the guy has no critical thinking skills of how to do anything, and he's got a total cabinet made up of ex-Fox contributors and news reporters who have, with the exception of a few, no experience in government issues. And so, and if you're asking, well, just how bad is this getting for Donald Trump? Well, even conservative podcaster Joe Rogan, who said this past Wednesday, said President Donald Trump may have effed up terribly with the Iran war after the United States resumed military strikes on Iran. Now, following Iran's attacks on the ships which was transiting through the Strait of Hormuz, we may have effed up by going to Iran. I mean, this war is not something anybody that's conservative wanted. And that's true. The MAGA base didn't want this Iran war. Republicans did not want this Iran conflict, yet Donald Trump started it. So most people don't even want it, so he says, except supporters of Israel. They're the ones that want it because, again, Israel pulls the strings of the United States through their AIPAC, through their they have given, and I've done this on my past podcast too. Go back and watch some of my earlier episodes, and you can look this up yourself. I don't make this crap up. Billions and billions of dollars have been put into the pockets of our congressional organization between the Senate and Congress. 90% of on both sides, the Democrats and the Republicans have taken $1,000 of cash from Israel through their PAC. And they do that so they will support Israel. I mean, I know money talks and BS walks, and it's so damn sad. I mean, you've got people like AOC and others, Bernie, who have not taken a one damn dime from the Israel PAC, but most of the others have. Anywhere, it depends what their position in Congress is, too, if you just think about this. If they got a great seat in Congress that makes vital decisions for defense spending, those people have gotten over $2 million put in their pockets to do whatever the hell they want to. Go out and buy a house, buy a boat, they can. And then those who are not quite as influential, but Israel still wants their support, they get anywhere from, $10, $15, $20,000. And this is why you get all these people say, "Oh, I'm into Zionism. I support this," is because they're paid to support it, and you can't tell me anything different. I mean, all the representatives from Tennessee that they've gotten money from them, and so they support it, and it's a sad situation, but that's what it is. So again, getting back to Rogan, he says it's. They're the only people that seem to be thinking it's a good idea in this country. Most people are horrified by the idea because Trump was elected. One of the pillars that he stood for apparently was that he doesn't want any more wars, which, as you know, turned out to be a frickin' lie. Rogan echoes conservative criticism shared by Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Matt Walsh, among others. The group has accused Trump of going to war with Iran to satisfy Israeli interests, without really considering the impact on the American people who have faced fluctuating gas and energy prices since the start of the war. And again, Iran has launched, as I mentioned earlier, 2 missiles towards commercial ships passing through the key waterway. And it's all of this as massive crowds, as you're well aware, this past week was mourning the loss of their leader, the Ayatollah. And so there you go. Here's the situation. If you're in love with Israel because of the biblical standards, the best way I can put this is maybe you want to support the country as it once existed and the people of Israel as it once existed. But it's getting to the point now that you cannot support Bibi in there, okay? Because the guy is a warmonger. And the killing that's going on between going into Iran now and the Palestinian people and the massive killing of people that has turned into a bloodbath, this is why each and every day more and more people are starting to wake up and they are withdrawing their support of Israel because the way that that country has turned into. And it's sad that how Netanyahu is pulling Trump's strings because he can. And he is pulling the U.S. strings because he's got almost every congressional member that we have elected in his back pocket. And it's, if you want to use the word blackmail, I guess you can go ahead and do that because of all the thousands up to millions of dollars that he's put into their back pockets, what the hell else are these people going to do? If he says, give me my money back, they've already spent it, they can't. So, and you got people like Blackburn from Tennessee who's running for governor there. I mean, she is just, she's a lapdog for Netanyahu and a Zionist because she's taken, since she's been in her seat there, she's taken so much money from them. Again, look this stuff up, folks. I'm not, it's fact. And this is why you're seeing what's going on there. And you see these mass execution of people. So, this is what's going on. So between the NATO summit and the Iranian conflict, it has been an absolute disaster for Trump. And speaking of other things with Trump and his, wish list of leaving his legacy around Washington, D.C., let's take a look at some of these profiles that are going on. Now, I know you've seen this on the news, this new helipad, but what you haven't heard from the mainstream media is even though he said this is all being paid for by private funding, it has turned out that that is a crock of crap too. So, so let's get into that. Here's the deal. So he's got this and other projects going on besides the helipad. But let's just talk about that for a minute, okay? And his real estate developments. So primary initiatives include the White House helipad. Now, construction has already begun on that. He says it's a private $6 million carved granite helipad on the South Lawn to accommodate the newer Marine One helicopters funded by defense contractor Sikorsky, and this is on the East Wing. Now, as with everything Trump says, however, a Washington Post investigation shows that it is costing $13 million due to renovations around the pad, including the south portico and the driveway, which is being resurfaced with white stone. Aha! See, it's the way he says it. The pad itself is being privately funded, but see, there's millions of dollars more that has to be done to renovate the area around the helipad. That is where you, the taxpayer, are coughing up the money. All right, he doesn't mention that. So kudos to Washington Post. And the Trump administration gave no answer as to who's paying for that part other than you, the taxpayer. Trump also ordered the clock accelerated to work to get it done by September 17th because Jinping from China is coming to visit and he wants that to look all cool. Those costs making it even $875,000 more because of the round the clock at construction. Trump is still wadding his Arctic Trump on the National Mall. The National Capital Planning Commission is hearing testimony from experts and citizens regarding Trump's proposed 250-foot arch. The commission recommended that the Trump administration lower the proposed height of the arch to comply with the Height of the Buildings Act. And he is also refurbishing the columns on the White House by stripping down the paint, and he wants federal golf courses upgraded, again, paid for by the National Park Service, or you, the taxpayer. So, and he's also talking about repainting the Eisenhower building, which is already happening at the White House. Bathrooms, he wants those upgraded. He wants marbles added to that. And he wants to construct a 90,000 square foot expansion featuring 22,000 square foot ceremonial ballroom, underground military complex, and drone defenses in his ballroom. And as far as his global real estate, the Trump Organization has upcoming exclusive residential, hotel, and golf developments underway in markets including Oman, the United Arab Emirates, India, and Saudi Arabia. So we got to pause on that one now, too, folks. We keep talking about all these projects. The golf courses have never been talked about. Trump loves golf, but he's not playing too much anymore, and we know why, his health. But he still likes to get on the golf course and ride around in his cart to give the presence that he's still very active and gets out and does crap. But again, back to these Washington, D.C. area golf course upgrades and the other things. See, this all falls under the National Park Service, and Trump controls the National Park Service. He has been sucking the National Park Service dry by diverting funds from gate entrance fees from the national parks and anything else they can do to get his little private projects done, while the national parks within themselves are suffering from infrastructure repairs that aren't happening, from reduced staff. The campgrounds aren't being taken care of as they used to. The way this is supposed to work, folks, is the entrance fees from the national parks that are collected is supposed to go right back into that specific national park, such as Yellowstone, Grand Teton, Zion, Redwood National Park in California, all those places. The money is supposed to be reinvested. It's not happening. He has diverted all that money to get these little projects done. So, the swimming pool fiasco, the swimming pool, I shouldn't call it that, the reflecting pool, my apologies, is just, those are all money that's been, sucked from the National Park Service. So, it's just unfortunate that has all happened that way. So, the other thing that's been going on that has turned out to be a money-sucking adventure for right here in the state of Florida, and down the road from me on I-95 in West Palm Beach is their airport. So Palm Beach International Airport is now Donald J. Trump International Airport after the formal name change took effect just this past Thursday, but the airport will only see a partial makeover since Palm Beach County was left holding the bag to pay for the presidential tribute. Here we go. It never fails. Promises met, promises broken. So late last year, county staff raised a slew of safety, financial, and legal concerns to state legislatures who were proposing a state law forcing the airport name change. The county was assured it would receive the necessary $5.5 million in taxpayer funds to pay for those changes. It didn't happen, ladies and gentlemen. So rendering most of their fears moot. But instead, Palm Beach County was only granted $2.75 million from the state budget to implement the state-mandated airport name change. So again, the legislature did okay changing Palm Beach Airport name to Trump's new trademark. But again, they didn't understand the reflecting the costs of all the sign changes. So now they ran out of money, so some of the sign changing is not going to happen because they don't have the money to do it. So you'll still see some approaching Palm Beach International Airport instead of the Trump. So if they get more tax dollars to do that, they'll continue changing the names. But see, what happens is they're pulling money out of their areas, which includes safety and infrastructure for the airport. They're sucking money from that so they can just try to get all of this stuff down. So it's just going to implement half of the necessary changes is what's going to happen. So I don't know how we're going to be able to do all this. So, it's we will be able to make the baseline necessary changes to signage with the $2.7 million that we have been granted, but for the full extensive signage, we're going to have to be needing the other half of those funds from the state, the airport board said, adding that they're hoping that a separate pot of State Department of Transportation funding will come through later this year to cover the rest of the cost. Now, because Donald Trump controls that, they might. So it's basically a big funding fight, and Florida's law requiring Palm Beach County to rename Trump's hometown airport after him. Well, that did pass, but they thought there was all that money there. So, and there's also 2 ongoing lawsuits to try to stop the name change, which will probably are going to fail, obviously, since they've already gone through and done that. And the other thing that you don't understand is Trump is making money off of this, because his name on there is a trademark deal. It's not, he's also a living president. Typically airports that have been renamed, such as Reagan or Bush, Kennedy, it's after the presidents have passed, and it's kind of an honor to them for their legacy. This is the only time in history that this happened that a living president has got his name after them. And that is because the state of Florida, which is heavily Republican, are all lapdogs. Anything Donald Trump, he lives here. Oh, my God, let's just name streets, highways, airports, garbage cans after him, whatever we can do. Long live Donald J. Trump. So, and here they are not realizing that after they get that and their excitement's over, in typical of Donald Trump, he's not going to pay for all of it or even some of it. And also, they have a marketing agreement at the airport. There's a merchandising agreement for anything Donald Trump in the airport. So when you walk into Palm Beach International, I'm still going to call it that airport, you're going to see a lot of Trump memorabilia in there and a lot of Trump merchandise. Trump gets money off of all that. And they were required in the contract to put his stuff in that store so he can sell it. Again, this is a branding deal, ladies and gentlemen. It's nothing to do with legacy. It has nothing to do with honoring Donald Trump. It's a frickin' damn branding deal like it is with everything else Trump does, okay? He is selling his name and his image to the airport. But, people don't use critical thinking skills and figure that out, all right? And it also gives Trump the veto power about how his name and biography and image are represented in the airport. Did you hear that? He has a veto power. So if the airport board wants to do something, Donald Trump has a final say of how you're doing it. Like, my face isn't big enough. The sign isn't large enough. There's not enough merchandise in there. You need to move this over there. Donald Trump controls everything with that airport on this agreement. But they were happy to sign that right on the, the dotted line. Okay, great, man. Like I said, these are some of the dumbest people I've ever seen. And the White House has already been touting the name change, posting a photo of the newly updated highway signs for the airport. Of course he will. Donald Trump loves anything that's positive about his image. And the airport's public-facing website isn't clear-cut about who's paying for all those changes. So this goes on and on and on, folks. It's somewhat embarrassing, And, of course, you got the Federal Aviation Commission is going to be changing it from PBI to JTT this week for pilots, according to the airport. But passengers looking for flights should continue seeing the old PBI code until August 18th. And the thing with Trump is the guy has a huge ego problem. If it isn't anything positive about him, he gets upset. If it's negative, he gets upset. So he has to have himself in the limelight. And I'm going to tell you right now, this deal with Palm Beach International Airport and the name change, to the taxpayers, folks, you have got it right up the butt. That's all I can say. And speaking of Donald Trump, the judge has ordered Donald Trump to release the $4.8 million that has been done and owed to Carol. So that has turned out to be something else. So that's quite interesting here about what has happened there with Carol and Trump. It's he has tried like hell, and I mean tried like hell, does not have to pay that money. He keeps saying that that's not me. I shouldn't have to pay that. Why are you sticking that on me? And the judge has finally said, enough is enough is enough. Pay the money and pay it now. And so what he's probably going to try to take this all the way to the Supreme Court if he can get away with it. But that $4.8 million he has been stalling on for years, claiming that it's not owed. I'm innocent. Why should I have to pay it? But guess what? A judge has finally said, okay, this is over with. You're going to have to pay it. The other breaking news here on our podcast, The Right Has Left, is Graham Planter announced yesterday that he will suspend his Senate campaign after allegations of sexual assault and has pushed his backers to withdraw their endorsement this week. Planter, whose campaign has already been hit with a barrage of scandals, has said the allegations, of course, are false. And again, this is a situation of she said, he said, but again, it is probably definitely true. And I'm going to reflect back this thing with E.J. Carroll. Watch this little clip. Now, this is Donald Trump, who is questioning the woman over the man on this case, in this particular case, Planter, about who did what, because you know how Trump is with women. Watch this clip.
Well, steps out of the race.
So he won the primary.
And now there's these new allegations.
It's very hard for them to do. And it's really a question of whether or not you believe the woman. A lot of people say big falsehoods.
Even Donald Trump, who hates all Democrats, stuck up for Planter with his eye-opening statement when asked about, this woman on Air Force One. So what's going to happen now? Well, several main Democrats are already jockeying to replace Planter as the nominee to take on the Republican Senate, Susan Collins, in November. Now, they include businessman Dan Kelvin, former Maine Senate President Troy Jackson, and former top state health officials Nariv Saw, and former congressional aide and House candidate Jordan Wood. These are people who are going to have to take over Planter's position and hopefully run against Collins. And one other person, environmental consultant and Senate candidate David Costello. He is also going to probably throw his hat on the ring. Now, this guy, unfortunately, to what has happened, I mean, it's a good thing he's left. I didn't mean unfortunately, but, this incident was really serious. But, Collins is going to be hard to beat. That's the whole bottom line there. So, but we'll see what happens there. And finally, the news, of course, we have to deal with Mitch McConnell. Kentucky's Democrat Governor Andy Beshear has sent a letter on Wednesday to Republican Senator Mitch McConnell asking for details on what's going on there to his staff, not him personally. This has turned into a huge scandal because we don't know what's going on with Mitch McConnell. Is the guy alive? Is he brain dead? What is going on? There's been people even said that they have been talking to him and he is very cognitive and has his faculties and he's still doing Senate business. I call bullshit on that, but that's what they're saying. And so, again, even the governor's wanting to know what's going on. And Donald Trump, of course, he even says he doesn't know what's going on. He hasn't been updated. So Kentuckians are growing increasingly concerned about the current state of affairs of what's going on with Mitch. And they, as well as MAGA base and everybody else. Okay, what is Mitch? Is he alive? Is he dead? What's going on? No pictures have been released. Nothing from the staff, and even his own wife, who's over in China on details, is acting like, don't worry about it. It is strange as hell, and we haven't gotten anything out of it. Now, he's got to August 17th before they have to hold a special election. When he's not showing up and voting and doing everything else, then they can hold a special election to have him replaced. What is going on here? It's just basically the Republican Party trying to hold on to the seat. Okay, if they have a special election, the guy that's going to probably replace him doesn't like Donald Trump, and Trump knows that. And I think Trump is the one that's really pulling the strings behind here to do what you got to do to stonewall this thing. We got to keep Mitch McConnell in his seat, whether it be virtually or whatever else. So that's really what's going on there. All right, so interesting stuff. And that is my podcast for The Right Has Left for this week. I hope you've enjoyed it. I do look forward to your comments. It has been a wild week with Donald Trump all over the place, all over the map. And with his mentality level right now, he's been all over the place with that as well, as you've just seen in these clips. So I don't know what's going on with this guy. I don't know what's going on with Mitch McConnell. And I don't know what's going on with the war of Iran. Nobody knows, all right? It has been a wild week. And so until then, you try. You definitely try to have a good week. This is Roy Garden. Take care.